the two constants I've always had in my life since I was a kid was hunting and horses, and that's really what's led to a lot of my success.
Have you hunted horseback?
That's one of my goals now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Just
Y'all doubled that weekend, right?
we did. So that was opening morning. We saw the bear, went back that afternoon, and then at some point I looked to the right, and there's one in full strut, probably 15 feet from me.
Wow.
And you can't move. You're just sitting there, and I wait until he gets in perfect position in front of us. And dropped my first tom. And it was, nice, big, beautiful bird. And then Tom got his that afternoon, so we doubled up, and they were both of them beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous birds. I just saw this weird looking branch, and I kept looking. It got a little bit lighter. That looks like a nice set of antlers. Little more light. All you could see was a head and this nice sized rack. And finally, I saw an ear twitch. Like, Willie's real. And he looked around one time, pulled the trigger, and it was a perfect hunt. It was a perfect shot. Most beautiful deer, and it was a perfect day.
Yeah.
My cousin came out and took pictures. He was happy for me. No, not everybody's going to be happy for you coming to their farm and shoot a nice deer.
Kill the big one.
Yeah, he set us up and took some really good pictures, and kind of pinnacle
Yeah.
for me so far.
Definitely.
See, those hunts like that make up for the 10 that you go on where you strike out.
Right. That
That's
makes
what
it all worth it. Yeah.
If you could bottle that up, man, and get it out when you wanted to.
But it can't be that way all the time, or we'd get bored.
Well,
we got to have
probably
something
right.
to chase.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This year, we celebrate the men and women of the TWRA responsible for 75 years of wildlife conservation. Now make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a fun show lined up for you today. Mr. Matt Cameron is helping me co-host.
Yes, sir.
We're not in the normal spot. When I visit East Tennessee, we're normally in the Morristown office, but today we're in Seymour, Tennessee.
My vote is we do every podcast right here where we're at right now from henceforward.
Okay, all right. So I want to move the studio to Seymour to Mr. Daniel Jerrolds' place, and I hope his wife's okay with that.
That's all right. We can make it happen.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, we are on location today in East Tennessee. I'm excited to be here. Daniel Jerrolds is our guest, and we're going to get into how we met and hear a few hunting stories today, and it's going to be a fun conversation. But before we do that, Matt, I wanted to just we normally have a radio station to highlight. Don normally does that. We didn't have one written down today, but we're going to just say thank you to all our radio partners, especially the few here in East Tennessee. We got one in Knoxville. We got one in Morristown. I'm sure there's more that I can't think of right now, but just appreciate the stations up this way that help us get the word out.
Absolutely. This show wouldn't get heard if it weren't for them by and large. So we are very grateful for our radio partners.
Definitely. And then you folks that are listening on the podcast, thank you for listening there. If you want to go watch and see where we are today, go watch our YouTube channel. And you can find us on Carbon TV. We're out there everywhere. Our TV partners who run the show across the state, those partners are awesome as well. So we're out there. Come find us. And anyway, we'll jump into it. It's always fun to get outdoors. That's why we're out here today shooting this show here on the patio. But
is there a name for this place that we're at right now?
Yeah.
Do you have a name for this farm? Officially.
No. We don't have a name for the farm. My wife's business is Open Reins.
Okay.
REINS, like the reins on a horse.
Cool.
We're looking at horses. We're looking at a swimming pool. We're looking at pastures and a beautiful house that I would have sworn that was built over 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was built in the 90s. I'm thinking 1890s. Like, nope, 1990s.
Yeah, it's a pretty place.
Yes, it is.
Well, if you're talking to my kids, it was built in the 1900s. Because they started referring to the 80s and 90s as 1900s now. And we're like,
oh my
okay.
gosh, are we that old?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Oh, the 1900s.
So we can say it was built in the 1900s.
Okay.
That's funny. Well, let's get to know you, Daniel. You talked about your wife and the farm here, but also I want to get a little background on you and what you do for a living and that kind of thing. So let's just jump in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up very blue collar on a railroad track construction site all the way till I went to college. I always thought I'd be running a piece of equipment or welding like I was doing when I was 17. I always promised my mom I'd go to college, and through a odd series of events, I ended up being a teacher. I took American Sign Language as just to fill in a gap on a schedule, and ended up working at Tennessee School for the Deaf since 2000.
Wow. Well, that's I'm sure that's a rewarding position to be in.
It is.
It would have to be.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge sometimes. Being in a point in my career now, I start working with middle school students all the way till they exit the program. Sometimes age 18 all the way to age 22, making sure they have all their services set up and they're going to a job or to a tech program or to college.
Wow.
And it is rewarding.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about earlier, some of the kids that we've been placing this past couple of years, and to see them grow, and especially when they come back and become my coworkers, my peers at work, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and you get them to a certain point in a college or into a career, right? That's how you help them move forward.
Right. Just working with them all through their teenage years, or high school years rather, and making sure that they're getting the services. If they want to be a welder, all right, let's go to our TCAT. Let's get you in a welding program.
Sure.
If you want to go to college, set up those visitations and everything. Making sure they have their services set up and that they have a support system when they leave.
Awesome.
That's my public sector job, and then I have my private sector job where I'm working mostly for my wife.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on that while we're here. I mean, it's a therapy with horses, right?
Yeah. When you say equine therapy, a lot of people think about like the STAR program here in East Tennessee, disabled kids riding horses, and I volunteered for them. It's a great program. When she and I met, she's been a therapist or a counselor for 25 years, and at the place that she was a director, they started an equine therapy program. And I said, what's equine? The kids riding horses.
Yeah.
So she has an office and she's built up her clientele. Some people just come to her for therapy, whether it's couples or trauma. And I won't go into too much detail. That's really her lane.
Sure.
But then we incorporate the horses into the therapy, and we do family sessions. And it's not, what I tell people is that we're not teaching horsemanship. Nobody rides. It's all groundwork. And you were asking for examples earlier, what it looks like.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 different ones. It may be, if you want to talk, stand there and brush the horse, give them a ground. But it's really effective. We do some groups. We deal with a lot of trauma, addiction, you name it.
Wow.
Well, God bless you for what you do in the public sector and the private sector.
Yeah,
it's fantastic work.
We both have pretty unconventional careers. It's not every day.
I didn't know equine therapy existed.
Yeah, I didn't
know.
Until today. So thank you.
We own an equine therapy business, and then I'm working with deaf kids at school, at the residential school for the deaf. So pretty unconventional setup we have. But as far as being here on the farm, it's 7 days a week for me.
Yeah.
Never leave. It's very rewarding. And thank you for bragging on the place. It's a lot of work.
We were talking about this swimming pool I was talking about when we built our place not long ago. I wanted horses. My wife and daughter wanted the swimming pool. And you know what we ended up with, right? The swimming pool. My man here's got both of them.
Okay.
But I think he's about taught me how to having horses. He said it's like having 3 toddlers you got to take care of every day.
7 days a week. You got to make sure they're all right.
But you enjoy, I mean, outside of the professional life, you enjoy riding horses and camping and getting outdoors with them too, though. So,
Yeah, and we can talk about that, like how I got into both of them. But the two constants I've always had in my life since I was a kid was hunting and horses. And that's really what's led to a lot of my success.
Have you hunted horseback?
That's one of my goals now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
We won't hear about that next time on the podcast.
So we met, I was working on some stuff one day, following up on some Facebook messages, and I saw this message in this video that Daniel had shared with us. And so anyway, that's how we met. So let's jump into that video and talk about that encounter. So you were turkey hunting for the first time, or it was one of your first real turkey hunt.
Right.
And this was less than a year ago, I think. Now.
It was this past spring season,
and encountered a pretty cool another piece of wildlife, another animal encounter. So talk about that.
Definitely unexpected. Yeah. Like I say, I grew up trying to figure out how to hunt by myself, and 3 or 4 times when I was a teenager tried to go turkey hunting. I had no clue what I was doing. Nobody had shown me anything. And just a good friend of ours, Big South Fork, Fentress County, he's a true turkey hunter, Tom, and he made the offer to go turkey hunting. His wife's into horses. That's how we met.
Okay.
So we're riding horses with his wife.
Perfect.
And he's a hunter. And so I go with him opening day, Saturday morning, private property, his private property, have the decoy set up and everything. And it was just barely daylight. We're sitting next to a tree. My first real turkey hunt where I have a chance at seeing something. And he just says, there's a bear. And we look up, and right across the food plot, probably 70 yards away, you see a head stick up. And it looks around for a second and turns around and bolts. I'm not sure if it smelled us or what the deal was, but I was just excited. I was like, man, we're seeing daylight. We're seeing a black bear right in front of us. That's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
15 minutes later, what had happened is he or she, I'm not sure if it was a boar or sow, went back in the woods, went downwind, and came out the other end of the food plot. So the first thing I did was grab my camera or my cell phone and started filming. I had like 2 or 3 minutes of it just making its way through. And it was a big bear. I don't know how, I'm not a bear expert, but it was a good sized one. And just to see it come through, the food plot, checking everything out. And then it got right on the other side, right in our decoys. And you could see it start acting a little funky, and we're like, what's going on? It smelled us where we'd been having those decoys that morning. But it was the video was awesome.
Yeah.
I was just so proud. I didn't care if we got a turkey that weekend. I was like, man, I'm face to face, 50 yards, maybe 40 yards, and got this awesome video. So I sent it in.
Yeah.
Thank you for posting it. It was really cool.
Yeah, we posted it on Facebook. If you hadn't seen it, go back and watch it, or we'll be showing it on the show. But yeah, that was a really cool experience, and I appreciate you reaching out and sharing, because I mean, we saw comments. People say, "Well, I've seen a bear while turkey hunting. What's the big deal?" It's a big deal. It's fun. It's exciting. Something you've never encountered before. It can be, the adrenaline can be pumping. It's just, nature's so cool. You never know what you're going to see. So I don't care. I don't care if I've seen 4 or 5 bears while turkey hunting. Anytime be great to see it.
I've turkey hunted 25 years, never seen a bear while turkey hunting.
Yeah. I encountered a bear while trout fishing one time, but and that was pretty crazy on a stream. But
did you try to take your fish?
Nope.
You hear about
I didn't have any fish. I'm an expert novice when it comes to this.
Drummer, right?
Yeah,
Expert novice.
Yeah, expert novice. So I was just casting that day. I wasn't fishing. No.
Well, I've had a lot of encounters with black bears. I grew up talking about horses. I grew up riding horses here in the Smokies, so I've seen plenty of bears. And I used to do backcountry backpacking, the AT, and so I've been around black bears a lot in the Smokies. But to be over there, just kind of unexpected circumstances, and to capture that video was really cool.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing. I think people enjoyed seeing it, and kind of reliving that with you, in that moment. But that's cool. And we'll talk about your mentor a little bit, Tom. Just y'all doubled that weekend, right?
We did. So that was opening morning. We saw the bear. Went back that afternoon, and it's chestnut checkers. We got there that afternoon, just kind of crawling down the trail, hoping the turkeys hadn't beat us there, and they had. And so we could see a little bit of movement, and we posted up on a tree, and he did a little bit of calling, but he taught me, as with every other piece of wildlife, don't overdo it. Let's call and see what kind of response we get. Didn't really get much of a response. So we backed out that afternoon, and had our A game Sunday morning, day 2, and got there, and it was, he's mentioned several times, he's like, don't expect it to go this smoothly again. Well, I'm sorry, after the first day after we saw the bear, it was really cool because he did get them all to come in. He did some really cool calling. I can't duck call or turkey call. I got to have somebody with me. But we had a bearded hen come in. We had several hens come in, and the toms were strutting and everything, but they just didn't give us a shot that morning. And then we went back that afternoon. I told you we backed out early. And then Sunday morning, it was perfect. The hens came back out, and you could just hear them screaming through the woods. I mean, they were really talking that morning. And of course, we hear them and see them this way. And then at some point, I look to the right, and there's one in full strut, probably 15 feet from me.
Wow.
And you can't move. You're just sitting there, and I wait until he gets in perfect position in front of us. And drop my first tom, and it was, nice, big, beautiful bird. And then Tom got his that afternoon, so we doubled up, and they were both of them beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous birds.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we just to get a little more background, more history. Growing up, you didn't have someone to take you necessarily. You were beating the bushes trying to get people to get you out there, right?
Yeah. When I was 13, I saved up my money and made my two big purchases. I bought my own horse that was mine, that I'd picked out when I was 13. And went to Walmart, saved my money, went to Walmart, bought a lever action 30-30 Marlin 336, most popular bush gun in the country. And down Tellico Lake, there's some public hunting property. It's like, can I get a ride from somebody? Until I was 15, I got my cousin to take me. He hunted. He showed me what he knew. Mm-hmm. We were both kind of flying blind.
Yeah.
And then I'd get somebody to take me and drop me off and pick me up, luckily. And when I was 16, I just started hitting the woods all the time. But we were talking about persistence. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted to be a deer hunter. That's all and I didn't know anything about it. And I think I was 22, so it took me 9 years before I got my first one.
Yeah.
Way to stick with it.
And and I'll never forget it. You know, a little bitty 4-corn 4-point, but I can tell you every detail about that hunt. I can tell you most details about most hunts I've been on, but that one, you know, the first one, nothing like it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I think the point to take home here is just keep going after it. Get out there and do it. You know, it's a great being outdoors is so much different than video games and some of the other things you can get into.
Well, and on that point, you watch these hunting shows and fishing shows on television, and it looks like, man, they're getting something every time they go, and they're killing these trophies. I'm here to tell you, this ain't fantasy. This ain't video games. Hunting is a challenge, and you're not going to get something every time you go. You're going to get embarrassed, and your feelings hurt, but don't be afraid to fail. Stick with it, and you will learn, and you will have some success at some point.
And that's hard to explain. Like I say, I didn't come from a hunting family. The family that I grew up around, you know, why are you wanting to go kill this poor little deer? It's like, well, I've been out there for years and I haven't done it yet, but tried to explain to them, it's not like that TV show or a magazine.
Correct.
You're out there for a long time, especially when you're on public land and don't really know what you're doing.
What got you interested in wanting to go to begin with? Do you recall?
I don't know I just remember wanting to go deer hunting, and I had nothing to get. It's like I said, nobody in the family. I'll say I didn't grow up in the most functional of environments. The two constants I've always had were horses and hunting, and I just knew that I wanted to do it. And I knew that when I was out there, I was having a ball. I usually saw a deer. I never got a deer for several years, but I could get a glimpse of one every once in a while. And if I saw one or two that season, it kept me going for the next season. I go, all right, if I saw 2 this season, I can see 3 next season. But those, hunting and horses, those were the 2 constants that I've always had in my life that really stuck with me.
Both of those things require a lot of effort and persistence. I can't imagine horsemanship, what that's really like. I think I want a horse, but I don't really think I do.
Just come ride these. For whatever reason, I never was into sports. I mean, I'm a big guy, and throughout school, you need to play ball, football, basketball, or whatever, but I was too tied up with horses and hunting. And now that I'm older, looking back, I can see the things that I've always been drawn to just kind of centered on self-reliance, whether it was riding your horse in the mountains by yourself or going hunting. We talked about scuba diving and sailing, those types of things. Backpacking, did part of the Appalachian Trail, and you're out there for a long time by yourself. So it revolved around self-reliance and figuring it out yourself. You got to want to do it, and you can't explain to anyone else why you're doing it. I mean, there's been so many people like, why the water filter and the dehydrated, why?
Yes.
If I have to explain it to you, you can't understand it. I don't know. It's just something about being out there and knowing that you can,
I think the same thing can be said. I can't explain to you why I'm obsessed with getting out of bed and going and getting after turkey when I can't get out of bed at 7 o'clock to go to work, drag myself out, but I'm excited to go turkey hunting. So whatever it is inside you that makes you tick. It's the stuff that you're into is really cool. And, on Jason's list here, not to try to jump ahead here, but I see Paducah 8-point on here, and I saw a photograph of a fantastic buck deer. So you've come a long way since you were 21 years old. So tell us about that.
My first deer was 21 or 22. I can't remember for sure, but then later on, my best friend Nathan, we got on some leases in West Tennessee. So I got deer hunting experience and figured out how to do it and what to do. And I've gotten a truckload of deer, and I could tell you about every single one. But the two big ones is that first in the little four corner I got, and then I have a cousin in Paducah that was kind enough. He had a small farm, and for years he's like, "Yeah, you ought to come up deer hunting sometime at my place." And it's one of those things you just kind of dismiss. One day when I have time, and one day I just made time and called him. It's like, "Now you've said it. Are you serious? Come on."
Yeah.
So the next day I packed everything up and drove up and hunted for about 3 days, I think. Day number 2, and he didn't have a huge farm, but it was a perfect setup. It was a crossing between a bigger soybean farm. There was farmland all around, and saw a few smaller deer the first day, and it was either the second or third morning. I wanted to stay away from the area as much as possible, so he had a tower stand set up right on the front edge, right near the road actually, and got there early. It's still dark. Got my binoculars out, and I was glassing all the tree line, and I kept coming to straight ahead of me. Later on, I measured it was 175 yards. I just saw this weird looking branch. That's odd looking, and I kept looking. It got a little bit lighter, and it's like, man, that looks like a nice set of antlers. Little more light, and all you could see was a head and this nice size rack. And I texted him. I said, "Man, I think there's a big." First of all, you got to know him, because I'm thinking he had his buddy set up a decoy. Like, are these guys messing with me? It's too perfect of a thing to be happening. But I texted him. He's like, shoot when you can. So I got to wait. And he was actually bedded down. Perfect broadside shot at 175 yards, but left to right, bedded down. And I bet I watched for 30 minutes, because you can see with binoculars for a long time before it's legal shooting light. So any jitters that I had was gone after a half hour.
Yeah.
And finally, I saw an ear twitch. Like, well, he's real. And he looked around one time, and when it got light enough, I it's like, just wait till he stands up. And then I psyched myself out. I said, if he stands up, he might be spooked or whatever. So I finally just had it center perfect and pulled the trigger, and it was a perfect hunt. It was a perfect shot. Everything about it was perfect.
Did he ever get up out of his bed?
Never. It was like lights out. Yeah, just.
Wow.
And
It's hard to pull off.
Yeah.
I can see, because I remember I told you I can tell you every detail about every hunt, and I was like, get centered back. I want to see what happens after I pull the trigger, because you've got that moment where you can't see the scope. And I got it back down, and you could just see him lay over. It was perfect. Couldn't ask for any more. And it was, it's not the biggest deer in the world, but he's nice, and it was the most beautiful deer, and it was a perfect day.
Yeah.
My cousin came out and took pictures. He was happy for me. Not everybody's going to be happy for you coming to their farm and shooting a nice deer.
Killing a big one.
Yeah, he set us up and took some really good pictures, and those are the two deer hunts, kind of pinnacle for me so far.
Definitely.
See, those hunts like that make up for the 10 that you go on where you strike out.
Right. That makes it all worth it. Yeah.
Right there. If you could bottle that up, man, and get it out when you wanted to.
But it can't be that way all the time, or we'd get bored.
Well,
we got to have something to chase. Got to have a carrot out there to get.
It's like when I was younger, I think I saw more deer when I was younger. And now that I'm older out there, and I don't see them as often, it's hard to find them. It's like, where are they, But you take your kids out, and then the deer just show up, It's like.
Well, that's where it comes full circle.
Yeah.
Mike, our boys are about to be 20, and my daughter's 16, and I don't know that they're going to hunt like I do when they get older, but they all want to go deer hunting. So I get more enjoyment, as much as I love those deer hunting stories. For me, both of my sons have got a deer so far. I hope my daughter will get hers this fall. Seeing them, taking them, and seeing them get their first deer, that's where it's at. That's more meaningful to me than any story that I've got myself, seeing that kid get their first deer or their first duck.
Yeah.
I can relate. Just segue into ducks. So I'm scrolling pictures, man, and I see my man here holding a beautiful greenhead with a band on its leg. Now, I've seen guys fist fight in duck blinds over a banded bird, so this is very coveted. So tell us about this banded bird.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of back up a little bit. Most of my life, it was deer hunting. That was my thing. But bow, black powder, rifle, I've done them all, been successful with them all. And I think it was about 8 years ago, my buddy Nathan I was talking about, we deer hunted a lot together. He said, I'm going to go on a guided duck hunt. You want to go? Why do you want to go on a duck hunt? Like, I'm not going to go on a duck. He talked me into it. So we went to Paris and hunted with a guide at Big Sandy. And on the way back, we got a handful of birds. On the way back, I was like, you can have my rifle, you can have my tree stands. Never going deer hunting again. This is where it's at. So, but again, I'm a guy in East Tennessee. We don't have duck hunting around here, and I had nothing to go on. So just kept going back with guides whenever we could, and we ended up going with some guides in Martin, Tennessee, and just at the right place at the right time, talking to people. Obviously, I like talk.
Yeah.
Well, after the second or third season, I know of a lease that we have a spot on. Okay, I'll take it. And so went, and I've done that for 5 or 6 years now. But the hunt that you're talking about, and I guess I'm saying that as a precursor, the guys that I duck hunt with know what they're doing. They are professional. It's like, what do you do? Well, I'm a duck hunter. Do you have a job? They are serious about it. And I have learned more from those guys just being around them. The morning you're talking about, it was frozen that weekend. Nobody was going to hunt. I drove over because I hunt when I can, not when I want to. You could walk out on the ice. Everything was frozen up. Busted a couple holes out. And I think I only got 3 ducks that day. They weren't flying. But the second one I got was a perfect shot. Went down behind the blind. Got out. Crawled on the ice, picked it up, and you could hear me yell. I was like, you've got to be, I don't know what I said, but I said some things. And he had a band on, which was exciting for me because, like you said, when a band, you got 8 people shooting at a duck and there's a band on it, it's not
everybody hit that duck.
It's not a birthday party going on. I mean, they're serious about it. So I was thrilled just that I got a banded duck. Looked at the certificate, went ahead and ran the numbers and everything, got the certificate, and it was banded in northern Alberta or northern Saskatchewan, I think it was, and thousands of miles away. So that was really cool.
Wow! And you contacted the guy, and
the biologist's name
banded it.
Yeah, the biologist's name is on the certificate. So I just started Googling and got in touch with his son, and he's like, "Oh, you need my dad." Yeah. He hooked me up with his dad, retired biologist. I've had 2 conversations with him for hours. If you want to know something about a duck, he is the guy to go to. He's retired now, but he said that at the time he was going to go back and look, but that was the oldest one he had turned in at the time.
Wow.
And he called me later on, and he was like, I got the same banding station that one was banded at Fort Chipewyan, northern Saskatchewan. They had a buddy his later on that season was doing a banding operation in Arkansas, and they got a pintail hen that was banded the same year at the same place, and she was still out there.
Oh, wow.
They rebanded her. And he's like, well, you got the oldest one that I've had turned in, but we still got one flying around out.
Say 9 years?
It was 9. I think it was 9 years old.
Wow. That's cool. Man, we could talk all day. Time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time, but a lobster hunting trip that you took in the reefs.
I wanted to hear the most about.
I know. We get to
lobster hunt.
We'll have to maybe do a Wildcast extra segment here, and we'll add that in.
Bonus.
Daniel, thank you.
Thank you guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for.
I finally have a captive audience.
You got a huge audience.
My wife and kids have heard enough stories.
Of which we just feel like we're just getting started here.
Yeah. This is Tennessee Wildcast. We have a great time. We're glad y'all are tuning in. We're glad y'all stopped by and listened today, but we'll have to come back next time. See you then.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Join us as we celebrate 75 years of conservation in our great state. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.